A federal judge just told one of NASCAR's biggest teams what they can and cannot do about the guy who walked out their door. And honestly, Joe Gibbs Racing is not going to like how this played out. Chris Gabehart, the man who spent 13 years inside Joe Gibbs Racing, the man who helped Denny Hamlin win 22 Cup races and 2 Daytona 500s, the man who knew every single secret about how that team builds fast race cars, he left. He walked away from JGR and took a brand new job with Spire Motorsports, and Joe Gibbs Racing is furious about it. Now, this whole thing landed in a federal courtroom in North Carolina, and on Monday, Judge Susan C. Rodriguez made her ruling. It took about 10 minutes. 10 minutes to decide the future of one of the biggest legal fights NASCAR has seen in a very long time. Chris Gabehart joined Joe Gibbs Racing back in 2012. He came in as an engineer, but he worked his way up. He became Denny Hamlin's crew chief and held that job for 6 straight seasons. Together, they won 22 races, including 2 Daytona 500 trophies. They made it to the championship finale 3 times. Hamlin finished 5th or better in 6 different seasons, with Gabehart calling the shots. Then, at the end of 2024, JGR promoted Gabehart to competition director. That is basically the person who oversees how every single car on the team gets faster. He had access to everything. The setups, the strategies, the data, the salaries, the sponsor deals, all of it. JGR's own lawyer said it best during the Friday hearing. She told the judge, he had the keys to the kingdom. But according to Gabehart, the job was nothing like what they promised him. He told the court that JGR said he would have a role like a chief operating officer, overseeing all the racing operations with freedom to make his own decisions. Instead, he said he was constantly pulled into meetings with Coach Gibbs, senior executives, and family members just to make basic everyday decisions about the race team. He called it a dysfunctional organizational structure that I could not continue in. And then things got even worse. Gabehart says he was pressured during the 2025 season to go back to being a crew chief specifically for Ty Gibbs, the grandson of team owner Joe Gibbs. Gabehart felt like Ty was not held to the same standard as the other drivers on the team. The whole situation became too much for him. Talks about leaving started. Those talks got ugly. And eventually they fell apart completely. So Gabehart took a job with Spire Motorsports as their Chief Motorsports Officer. He officially started working there on February 17th. And that is when Joe Gibbs Racing went to war. On February 19th, JGR filed a lawsuit against Gabehart. They accused him of stealing the team's most private information. They said a forensic investigation found that Gabehart had created folders on his work laptop called Spire and Past Setups. They said he saved team files to his personal cloud storage files that included driver salaries, performance reviews, payroll information, and sponsor revenue numbers. JGR also claimed he looked at those files on the very same day he met with Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson. They said he had been searching for information about Spire on his JGR computer from October through November of 2025. JGR wants more than $8 million in damages, and they wanted a full restraining order that would have forced Gabehart to quit his new job at Spire entirely. They argued he had a non-compete clause in his contract and should not be allowed to work for any competing NASCAR team for 18 months. But Gabehart had his own story to tell. He admitted that yes, he did take photos on his phone of a JGR spreadsheet and some projects he had helped build. He admitted to creating the Spire folder. But he said that folder was only for him to personally think about whether he should take the Spire job or not. He said he paid for his own forensic audit of all his devices. And that audit showed absolutely nothing was ever sent to anyone. No texts, no emails, no file transfers, nothing was shared with Spire or any other team. Gabehart said the lawsuit is not about protecting trade secrets, it is about punishing a former employee for daring to leave. Now, Spire Motorsports also had plenty to say. Co-owner Jeff Dickerson made it very clear that Gabehart's job at Spire is completely different from what he did at JGR. Spire already has a competition director for their Cup team, that is Matt McCall, and Bono Mannion runs their truck program. Gabehart was brought in to oversee a much bigger picture, the Cup team, the Truck Series team, a late model program, an ARCA program, 2 sprint car programs, a dirt late model program, their fabrication and chassis shops, and even the Andretti IndyCar program. because Spire's parent company TWG Motorsports owns all of those. Dickerson said, I think it's insulting to say it's the same role, because it's not the same role. We have a significant investment in Chris, and we're giving him the autonomy to do what he needs to do, not just to help the NASCAR program. He also pointed out that Spire already gets data from Hendrick Motorsports through a technical alliance, so Dickerson said they had no reason to want JGR's information. He told reporters, we don't want anybody else's stuff, other than Hendrick, obviously. Spire's lawyer also told the judge directly that the team does not need JGR's information and did not hire Gabehart for that reason. The first big court hearing happened on Friday, February 27th. It lasted over 3 hours. Lawyers from all three sides argued back and forth. The judge asked tough questions about whether Gabehart's new job overlaps with his old one. JGR's lawyer compared Gabehart to a football offensive coordinator who knows all the plays. Gabehart's lawyer fired back and said his client was the offensive coordinator at JGR, but is now more like a general manager and head coach at Spire, a totally different job. During a break in that hearing, something pretty emotional happened. Gabehart, dressed in a suit and standing with his wife Jennifer, walked over to Joe Gibbs. Both men told each other they never wanted to end up in this situation. The judge did not make a ruling that Friday. She told both sides to keep talking over the weekend and try to work it out. If they could not agree by Sunday night, she would rule on Monday. They could not agree. So, on Monday, Judge Rodriguez made her decision, and here is what she said. Gabehart can keep working at Spire. He can continue as their Chief Motorsports Officer. He can oversee all of the non-cup racing programs, including the Truck Series, Sprint Cars, Late Models, and the Andretti IndyCar team. The judge said, other duties are fair game. He is even allowed to travel to the upcoming race at Phoenix. But he cannot do anything at Spire that overlaps with what he used to do as JGR's competition director. That means he has to stay away from the kind of Cup Series competition work he did at Gibbs. The judge also ordered Gabehart to return any JGR data or materials he still has, and not to copy, use, or share any of it. And she ordered JGR to put up a $100,000 bond in case Gabehart ends up winning this fight later on. She did not grant JGR's full request to force Gabehart out of Spire completely. The judge said the evidence of any conspiracy between Gabehart and Spire was speculative at best right now. Both sides claimed victory. JGR said they were pleased and would keep fighting. Gabehart and Spire said the ruling changes nothing for them because his role at Spire was never the same as his JGR role anyway.